What's up, guys? Today, I wanted to go over my thoughts on recent buzz in Wesker circles and specifically like bigger Wesker streamers. To name a few, Alranican and Scooty feel that Wesker is kind of lacking, and I partially agree. But before we get into that, I wanted to give a big thank you. We just hit 200 subscribers, and this channel has literally doubled since the start of the new year. So I appreciate it greatly. And here's to 500 before I even fucking notice. You guys are killing it. Really, today, I think this video is going to focus on, first of all, base kit changes that I think Wesker could use, both in his power and in his passive slowdown. I do not expect all of these to be added, but I just want to give some ideas so that if anybody at Behavior watches this video, you guys have something to bounce off of. Of course, I'm a P100 Wesker. I have about 900 to 1,000 hours playing Wesker alone, and so I know the absolute ins and outs. And I'm not just making suggestions that I think would just make the killer better, but also more fun to play against. And so let's just get started. First of all, lab photo allows you to break pallets and walls. I think this should just be base kit. I don't think there's an add-on in the game that a killer needs more in order to be semi-competent in higher levels than Wesker does. You know, you're thinking about like blurry photo with unknown, which they made partially base kit. Even apron, like Kaneki is not even out on live servers, and they're already going to make apron base kit, which is essentially what makes him such a threat. Is that the apron is what allows Kaneki to get so much distance, because it practically doubles the amount of distance that you would originally get. And so I think with lab photo, it will absolutely, because right now Wesker's main issue that I run into is that when you get to a pallet, Survivor is running through it. You can either A, bank that they're going to wait, hoping to get a stun, and grab them through it. You can bound into it, they throw the pallet, they stun you, or they will pre-drop the pallet, and then you basically have to put your power away, kick it, or try to play it. And by trying to play the pallet, I mean like either trying to get a pallet slide, which is so inconsistent nowadays based on the loops that like every map has nowadays. Like there's no longer just you can slide off a pallet. You're gonna get stuck on like a rock or something, because every loop is just wide as shit, and then there's just like a skinny pallet in between. But that's besides the point. They also need to normalize his cooldowns. His miss and hit cooldowns are longer than they should be, and so I think that needs to be changed. I believe in 2v8, they also reduce his power charge time by like 10%. Could be wrong, but that felt amazing, and it was noticeable. Don't get me wrong, it was absolutely noticeable, and that felt amazing, so I think that should probably be something they should look into. And I would love a slightly reduced collision box, more towards his feet. There's just countless and countless and countless times where I set up a perfect bound and then I just stub my toe on what seems like fucking nothing. And it's just like, it's so aggravating how, not even bad, but just how much better Wesker could be. And I don't think the gloves, like the base kit gloves change that was like 2 or 3 patches ago, was really enough. And I would just like to see more done with his collision box. With all the power changes that I have suggested, now let's move on to his passive slowdown, which I think isn't exactly outdated, but I would like to make it more in line with how Nemesis's works. So I think we should lower the spray time by 1 second, and it will be added to the current add-on, which is Red Herb. So I would like that 1 second to be taken from base kit and added to Red Herb. Currently, Red Herb gets a maximum value of 24 seconds. And so I think giving the add-on an increased amount of value would be good, and also allowing survivors to spray mid-chase if they're fully hindered or fully infected is also an option. With that being said, I think they should add back the 8% hindered while you're fully infected. Now, before you type, just wait a second, okay? Now, my idea is that holding a spray while fully infected halves the hindered back to the current 4%. So that you are, if you are playing dangerous and you don't have a spray on you, you get punished for it. Now, with that being said, I think they should reduce the supply cases by 2, but each spray has 1 extra use, just like it had in 2v8. So the economy is going to be the same, but no longer can you just space out. Like right now, you can pretty much set a spray at every single gen except 1, and survivors don't really have to worry about the economy because there's going to be something nearby. And so not only will this space out his supply cases, but it will also make so that it is more impactful for a survivor to carry a spray on themselves, especially considering that you get extra benefit towards the hindered that happens when you're fully infected. Now that I have the really power part or power aspect out of the way, I think we should move on to add-ons, which is something that I have been asking for a while, and I'm not sure I ever gave like a full passover on his add-ons. So let's get into it. So with Lab Photo, I think it should create a third bound, which copies your second bound, which plays into synergy with not only Unicorn and Walkie. With Unicorn and Lab Photo combined, you pretty much turn into Bump Logic Blight. And I think this is something that was so amazing to do in 2v8 that I would love to have in the real game. And especially because right now, this iridescent add-on is not impactful whatsoever. If anything, Lab Photo just makes Wesker somewhat playable against good survivors that know how to play against Wesker. I think a caveat to the new version of Lab Photo is that if you use all 3 bounds, it will reduce each token cooldown by 1 second. So I'll take it from 16.5 seconds total down to 13 and a half, 13, whatever. Barring you have like any infections or whatever. So if you do use all 3 tokens with my new version of Lab Photo, it will be a little bit longer than it is now. Then again, you are using 3 bounds. And with my suggested change to supply cases, I think a passover to Eerie Vial is definitely necessary. They need to remove the exposed effect. I'm not sure why it ever had one to begin with. It just de-incentivizes using your power, even though you use your power to begin with in order to actually get them fully infected. Like it's such a lazy add-on, and it already has such a absurdly strong effect that this is just not needed. And so to combat that, I think it should add an extra supply case going from 4 to 5, which essentially would add more sprays to the economy. But Eerie Vial is already like a top 10 add-on in the game. I don't think it should be. I think it should be toned down a little bit, considering Wesker also has Dual Beetle, which in my opinion is a top 5 add-on in the game. Moving on, I'm not going to, obviously I did the first 2 are iridescent add-ons. These are in no particular order, so it could be from yellow to purple rarity or whatever. First up, Green Herb. up from 30% to 50%. The wording is a little bit odd because it sounds like it does pretty much exactly what video conference device does, or VCD, as a lot of Wesker mains call it. Currently what this does is that anytime you grab a survivor, you give them 20 charges of infection, and this will increase that from 20 to 26, and it's useless. Like, it's already a pretty bad add-on, and so I think bumping up to 50% just for now, seeing how it plays, because hypothetically you could just throw a survivor 3 times and keep them in a dead zone and then just instantly down them, and like, yeah, it's wasting a lot of time, but also if you hit a survivor, they get a speed boost and they're not exposed to your power. Like, they're not insta-downable to your power. So while it might seem like it's wasting time, you're really keeping that survivor from resources, keeping them in a corner, and sometimes that's not fun. So my suggestion is, from every time a survivor is grabbed, it will go from 26 charges to 30 charges. I've seen some people suggesting that it should be 100%, which that does not sound fun or interesting. Let's say you throw a survivor once and then they get grabbed. Like, you throw a survivor, no hit, and then you grab them and hit them. In about 20 or 30 seconds, they're going to be fully hindered. And depending on whether they have a spray or not, with my suggestion, they're either 8 or 4% hindered, which is just... I don't think it should be that strong. Granted, green herb, I think at 100% instead of the current 30 would be incredibly potent. But moving on, next up, portable safe. Currently, it is just hemorrhage until you heal, which I have actually found is really, really nice with chlorophobia, considering Wesker has a 40-meter tear radius. And just a side tangent, I've seen people saying that Wesker shouldn't have a 40-meter tear radius, and with my proposed changes, especially with lab photo, I still think it should be 40. Granted, his base distance that he gains is 21 meters, and so if Wesker's tear radius was dropped down to 32 meters, Monitor and Abuse would probably be the most ran perk on Wesker, and I don't think you should be reliant on a perk in order to get the jump on survivors. So with that being said, my change to portable safe is to add mangled to it, and then add a 70-second timer. I think every killer that is pretty reliant on their power should have some sort of sloppy butcher add-on, which is kind of funny that Xenomorph has 2 add-ons that are split between the mangled and hemorrhage, which, like, Xenomorph's power is already pretty dog shit, and you have to run 2 add-ons to copy the effect. Mind you, at a 20-second loss, you have to run 2 add-ons to copy the effect of probably one of the worst perks in the game. So yeah, I'd say a lot of power reliant killers should have sloppy butcher type add-ons, and it's kind of weird that Wesker doesn't have a mangled add-on already. I understand that having a 25% reduced speed to healing while also having to spray is a little bit much, I won't lie, but the current meta of like Resurgence or Second Wind or Will Make It even, I think can definitely make up for that. With that being said, I think we should move on to Loose Crank. I know the meme add-on, I have a proposed change that I think might actually be somewhat viable. So my change is to increase the bound velocity by 7%, which would be right about 15 meters a second. Currently, if you did not know, Wesker has a set bound velocity to 14 meters a second. Your first bound lasts for half a second, and your second bound lasts for a full second. So add-ons such as Unicorn and Walkie will just add 0.2 seconds and remove 0.2 seconds. Essentially, like there's no fixed distance. It's just you go for a set amount of time. And so increasing the bound velocity would technically give you a little bit more distance, and also you would get to the survivor faster. Truly, in my head, I do not see an issue with this. If you do, let me know in the comments. But I think this could actually be somewhat viable. Like I said before, red herb would be from 2 seconds to 3 seconds increased spray time. It already does like next to nothing. And so just moving the base kit into the add-on could give it a little bit more value. I would like to see Bullhorn at least improved, if not doubled, on the time. Currently 30 seconds of Oblivious is fairly good on a 40 meter tear radius, but I rarely find myself getting value out of the add-on if they are not spraying directly in my tear radius. So if you want to make it 45 or 60 seconds, have at it. That is up to you guys at behavior. The next one, Maiden Medallion. Currently, anytime a survivor hits full infection, they become blind to aura reading for 60 seconds, which already full infection doesn't really happen mid-chase. So like the aura blindness is already pretty ass, and the situation in which it would actually proc doesn't really happen. So my idea is that anytime you throw a survivor, it inflicts blindness for 60 seconds. I might actually use this a little bit if they don't decide to change windows of opportunity in the next few patches. I think that's everything I have to say for that add-on. Next up, Dark Sunglasses. Currently, anytime a survivor hits full infection, it will give you undetectable for 20 seconds. And I say up that to 30, and then add a secondary effect where anytime all survivors are infected, which is essentially the "I shall release Ouroboros," that voice line, I think the add-on should trigger on that as well. Which this would have direct synergy with Eerie Vial. And a lot of people have been asking for a Lethal Pursuer type of type of perk, but for undetectable rather than aura reading. And I think this could be really cool on Wesker, considering, of course, he has a 40 meter tear radius. And you could also throw on lethal to surprise people. And then finally, Ouroboros Virus right now gives you 4 seconds of aura reading anytime a survivor hits full infection, which is very potent, and I think could be fairly decent with VCD. But 4 seconds, like by the time you recognize that somebody is fully infected, you're gonna look around, you're probably gonna waste 3 seconds of the add-on, and whether or not you're running Lethal Pursuer, you might not even see them. And so I think just adding 2 seconds of aura reading to this add-on could be game changing. Let me know what you guys think. And now let's get into why I think Wesker needs these changes. So since Dracula came out in, let's say, August, the last 3 killers that have released have all had some type of play on Wesker's power, and they're kind of evolving with it. Stick with me for a second. Imagine Wesker as Master Splinter, and Dracula, Houndmaster, and Kaneki coming out April 2nd. It's kind of like the Turtles, you know? The Turtle. Where Wesker is the building block, and honestly, this just plays more into my claim that Wesker is the greatest killer in Dead by Daylight, is that he is essentially just the building block for all of these dash killers that are coming out. because his power is so simple and it is so fun for both sides that why would you not try to repeat that success? Now, that being said, I do think that they should try to make something that isn't just me go straight line, survivor dodge, right? I think they should try to switch it up. When Houndmaster got leaked, there was 3 killers that were leaked. Like, there was 3 powers that were leaked, and I'm not sure if I really want to talk about the one that, of course, hasn't made it to playable servers. But of course, there was Houndmaster, which was just like a Wesker prototype. There was a grappling or Spider-Man killer, and then the last one. And so it was kind of confusing because they released Dracula, and then not even 2 weeks later, we're getting news of another just repeat of Dracula. And that was just like, are they running out of killer ideas? And so over that time, since then, I have made up 3 of my own killer ideas. So if you guys get this video to 100 likes, I know that is a fairly big goal, but I believe in you guys. I will share my own 3. And if you have your own idea, leave it down in the comments below. But really, like, how they evolved Dracula from Wesker is that they made a short third-person killer, essentially just morphed Chucky and Wesker, that gets occasional haste, that has built-in info, just like Wesker does, that has less control, but it is more versatile. And I think Lab Photo being base kit is a necessity, considering that the wolf form can break pallets on its own. Of course, you're using your power, but the one add-on, I think it's called Killer Doll. I could be wrong. Whatever increases the value of the scent orbs is so ridiculously strong that you probably should run that if you are more keen on using wolf form. So now I think it's time to talk about Houndmaster and how Houndmaster evolved on Wesker's basic prototype of a power. Essentially what Houndmaster does is that she gets distance across the map without actually having to wait for a cooldown, right? Once the dog comes back to you, which, mind you, is a pretty big pain in the ass, but once it does, you have a half-second cooldown before you can use your power again. In the search mode, specifically. So, essentially, what they took from Wesker is that people do not think his map mobility is as strong as it is, because once you get to a survivor, you have to wait to use your power. And so, essentially, they took Wesker's power and they made it into a dog that not only gets you across the map, but also you can use at tiles. You can use in chase. Of course, the chase mode. And while it does have its own effect, I do think the Hound Sense is kind of useless. I still haven't found a reason to use it, to be honest. There's a reason for most deep wounds in the game, right? With Deathslinger, you can get a really cool shot across the map and still get value out of spending time in order to hit that, right? And like, I feel like if you're sending the dog across the map and you get Hound Sense, you can't really capitalize on that. Like, you still have to follow after the dog. So I kind of got off topic there. But really, they filled the hole with Houndmaster, where if you use both bounds as Wesker, you kind of have to wait 10 to 12 seconds in order to get your power back. And so, you know, why would I play Wesker when I can have a better time on Dracula? Why would I play Wesker when Houndmaster feels more consistent when she's not a buggy mess. And now I think that leads into Kaneki, where why would I play Wesker when Kaneki is just better in almost every way? And I am absolutely not advocating for any nerfs to the 3 killers that I mentioned. I think they're perfect the way that they are, and I'm excited to see what their plan is with Kaneki, because I know, of course, Apron is going to be base kit. They're doing some changes to the aim assist on the survivor grab, which I think will make him play even better, surprisingly. And also add a skill component to both survivor and killer. It's a skill shot that survivors can dodge, and it's a skill shot that the killer can get really good at. But that being said, Kaneki can hit over most loops in the game as long as you have line of sight. And with Wesker, I think being able to get the same kind of hits as Kaneki, you kind of can really only do that with like hug teching or hoping that the survivor is out of place and you get a really nice flick. So ultimately, the way that Wesker can even try to imitate the power that Kaneki has is capitalizing on survivor mistakes, which is something that a lot of the worst killers in the game rely on. And it feels like Wesker is kind of sloping down into not even like worst killers, but like right now, I would say Wesker is on the verge of like the first killer in B tier. And that sounds bad. But since I made the tier list video, I have really noticed that my quality of Wesker games have gone down because I think people have just figured out how to play against Wesker. And you can really only expect so much out of such a simple power that truly the counterplay is as simple as the power can be. And part of it, like, I like these complex and intricate powers, and I think they're hard to learn for both sides. And maybe that's why there's so many survivors that just throw a pallet anytime a Wesker pulls out their power, because it's always working, right? Unless they have lab photo, it always works. It always works to just pull out the power. Well, Kaneki has a faster vault, even faster if you're enraged, and his cooldown is consistently faster than Wesker's. And so I think I don't even think you should really, like I said, this is not an advocate. This is not advocating for nerfs to Dracula, Houndmaster, or Kaneki. This is strictly talking about buffs to Wesker. I am using these killers as a stepping stone, I guess, in order to talk about the issues that I arrive at with Wesker. So currently, where am I taking this thought? Currently, I think Kaneki has an easier time at getting the first hit, and I think he is less reliant on bad map collision in order to get his follow-up hit. Wesker, I feel like you always have to be working, and I feel like his kit is sometimes limiting in the amount of work that you actually put in. Simply put, you can only do so much on Wesker before it feels like you can't do anything. And so the changes that I said before, I think can certainly help. But really, ever since we got the third bound, I have been wanting more, and I didn't play too much 2v8, but I saw the vision, right? I saw the vision of a third bound while it was buggy, while it numbers-wise didn't really fucking make sense. You had a walkie second bound as your second bound, so it wasn't like it just felt weird as a Wesker player to play with 3 bounds, not because it was something new, but because it frankly didn't make sense. And so, of course, with my proposed changes, I think this would certainly level it out, copying your second bound as a third bound, which would give Wesker the necessary map traversal that I think he deserves. And similar to the egg, right? You don't want to make egg base kit because it is an add-on that I think people should make the decision to have, right? I make the decision to almost always run egg because it is something that I have gotten used to. And so I think with 3 bounds, it should certainly be an add-on because I think it would be way too strong if Wesker just got that base kit. I would rather have the ability to break pallets with 2 bounds than just sitting around doing nothing with 3. Well, not sitting around doing nothing. Wesker needs the counterplay to his current counterplay. And I don't think you should have to run an add-on in order to do something about that. Like I said before, if you have your own original killers, leave them down in the comment section. If this video gets to 100 likes, I will make a video reacting to yours and explaining mine. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments, thoughts, concerns, whatever, down in the comments section. And thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah.